Hey, 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 happy Monday, y'all, and welcome to another episode of what I like to call Monday Night Live or Faith Purpose Profit Live, a time I come every Monday, 7 p.m. EST, to align biblical principles with your entrepreneurial journey. And really, it's my goal to do the thing that I'm called and created to do so that you can do the thing that God called and created you to do. And yes, you are called and created to master the marketplace. And so that is what I'm here to teach you. Everybody's not called to the pulpit. Some of you are called to the marketplace. And if that's you, you're in the right place. Hey, Carol. So you can see Carol knows what to do. So as you come in, number one, tell me hello. Number two, tell me where you're joining me from today. Number three, if I say anything that resonates with you, I want to know whether you're here live. I know many of you watch the replay. And then the third thing, or is that number four, I want to ask you to do is to share it. If you're here in Facebook or on LinkedIn, there's a share button somewhere that you can share it. On YouTube, you can also do the same thing. Get a link and text it to your friends and say, hey, you need to get on and hear this insight. So I actually ended a series last week. It was a 4-part series, Do You Know Your Power? And when I hung up, the last thing I said in our series last week has been sitting in my spirit, and I haven't been able to shake it. So you know that I ended our last series on this Bible verse. Now, this is John 5:5-9. Now, a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. And some of you guys have heard this story. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, this is Jesus saying to him, do you want to be made well? Jesus asked him, do you want to be made well? Again, this man has had this condition, been laying there for 38 years. And Jesus looked at him and said, do you want to get better? The sick man answered him, sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirring up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me. So in other words, he's giving Jesus all his excuses of why he'd been laying there for 38 years. Hey, Lisa. So Jesus said to him, rise, take up your bed and walk. In other words, get up and take action. And so what's interesting is as I was sitting with this over the last week, what I've been thinking about is I meet so many entrepreneurs, again, whether you are just starting out or you've been in business for years. What I realize so many people do not know is really, what do they want? So that's our conversation for tonight. Do you know what you want? Now, I want you to be clear and have a real conversation with yourself. I want you to have a real conversation with yourself so that you can move into your next level. Hey, Valerie from North Carolina, right? I love it. Okay, Valerie said this title is a question I asked myself a few days ago. This is a divine connection. Come on, Valerie. I guess I could put that on the screen, right? And I want you guys to get this. When I ended our live last week, that sat in my spirit. So I started looking up, and as soon as I started praying about it, here's where God took me. He took me to the story of where 2 blind men received their sight. Okay, so I'm gonna read the whole story. It's in parts of it. I'm going to read Matthew 20:29-34. Let's pray my eyes work today, y'all, because I don't have my readers trying to be cute. Matthew 20:29-34 is what I'm going to read. Whew. Okay. Now, as they went out to Jericho, a great multitude followed him, talking about Jesus. And behold, 2 blind men sitting by the road. When they heard that Jesus was passing by, cried out, saying, have mercy on us, Lord, Son of David. Again, they're talking to Jesus. Then the multitude warned them that they should be quiet. So these 2 men obviously should not have been speaking. Everybody's telling them, "Shh, hush, you should be talking to Jesus," right? And so Jesus stood still and called them and said, "What do you want me to do?" Mhm. So even though they shouldn't have been speaking and the crowd told them to hush, Jesus said, "Mm-mm," looked over all of that and said, "Okay, y'all, what do you want me to do?" And they said to Jesus, "Lord, that our eyes may be opened." So Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight and they followed him. Now, the whole point of me sharing this story with you is this verse here. Oops, sorry, y'all got paper everywhere, right? It's really this verse here. Jesus asked them, "What do you want me to do for you?" So I wonder if if Jesus came to you today and asked you the same question that he asked the two blind men in Matthew 20, could you answer the question? If Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" Now, Jesus is not a genie in a bottle. So it's not about, "Oh, I want a house, I want a car." If God was asking you a question that was going to make a tremendous impact in this world, would you be able to answer the question? So that really is what's been stirring up in me is, do you know what you want? Or maybe I should ask it this way: where in your life are you settling for that less than what you want? And I'm gonna tell you, if you're gonna go after your big bold dream to start or grow a business, you got to be clear on what you want. And so I want to spend some time today to talk to you about the three reasons people don't get what they want. Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. You ready? The three reasons. So let me say this to you: if your business is failing, if you're sitting in a job and it feels meaningless, or you feel like empty, or you feel like something's missing, any of those things, can I tell you that this is the place you're in? Last episode, I talked about you being in a blackout. And by the way, if you missed that, let me put a banner up here so you can go back and watch that. If you missed the episode last, well, I talked about you being in a blackout. It's another level to this conversation. Go over to nrjnetwork.com and watch it. But I need you to understand and get this, y'all. Anytime you feel like something's missing, something's not working, you feel a lack of fulfillment, you're frustrated, you're bored, any of those things, do you realize that you're not sitting in what you want? Mhm. So let's talk about it tonight. Let's have a real conversation. And I need you to be honest with yourself. So let's talk about the three reasons people don't get what they want. You ready? Got your pen? And I want you to identify which of these three is you. Okay. And you could be in all three, by the way. Number one, not bold enough to ask and have faith that God can and will do it. Now, the story I just read, these two blind men, or is it three blind men? Two blind men, when Jesus' disciples told him to hush, that means that they should not have been asking Jesus for that, but they were bold enough to ask and believe that God would do it. And many of you aren't bold enough to ask. You're not bold enough to believe that God will and can do it for you. That's deep, right? And here's an example. Let me read this out to you. This is a story. Now, I'll be honest with you. I heard this story preached a couple weeks ago. And last week, after I talked to y'all and I was sitting with this story popped up in my spirit. It comes from, oh, I didn't even write it in here. It's Joshua, I believe it's the 15th chapter. It starts at verse 15. I think it's Joshua 15:15. Okay. And Caleb said, he who attacks Kir, I'm gonna mess up the names, by the way, y'all. Okay. And Caleb said, now Caleb is Joshua's like right hand man. Okay. He who attacks Kirjosh, Sephir, and takes it, to him I will give Asha, which is my daughter, as wife. So in other words, whoever wins this thing, I'm gonna allow him to marry my daughter. Okay. So Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it and he gave him Asha, his daughter, as his wife. Now, here's the whole point of why I'm reading this to you. Now it was so, when she came to him, talking about Asha, that she persuaded him to ask her father for her fields. So in other words, Asha's like, come on, boo, can you go ask my father to give us this field that I want? So she's bold enough to say, look, I want this field. I need you to go ask my father for it. But what's so deep? She asked him to go do it, but then so she mounted from her donkey. So in other words, I guess her husband wasn't bold enough to do it. So she said, forget him, I'm gonna do it myself. It goes right into this. She dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you wish? And she answered, give me a blessing. Since you have given me land in the south, give me also springs of water. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. See, back then, a woman shouldn't be asking for things. So when her husband didn't do it, she didn't wait. Just like the three blind men, two blind men didn't wait. The man in the previous story I read waited 38 years. And I need you to get this. If you're going to do something that's going to be radical for God, then you got to be radical to go and get it. You got to be bold enough to say, Lord, I know you've called me to it. I'm going to do whatever it takes, but you got to be willing to ask for it. And here's what I know, especially when you're already successful, you've gotten to this whole level, and then you're like, well, how dare I ask for that? Let me tell you, my daddy, when I was little, I was spoiled. Okay. My father just passed in 2004. And I'm gonna tell you, my husband wouldn't give me stuff. I was just like Asha. I would call my daddy, and I'm gonna give you a great example. Laugh because my husband might hear me give this example. So I remember when in Massachusetts, I had decided to work full time on my business. And before that, this was like maybe what year was this? This must have been 2000 and excuse me, my father died in 2014. So this must have been in about 2007. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Might have been 2012, right? So, and I know some of you do not have great relationships with your father, and I get this, but I need you to understand the point I'm making here and look beyond what didn't happen for you. Because here's the thing: if anybody can do something for you in earth, God will do that times 20 in heaven. Come on, somebody. Your heavenly Father who sits on high is going to bless you beyond anybody can do on earth for you. So, my father in 2012, when I decided, okay, full time, I'm going to go all the way in on my business. My husband converted one of our guest bedrooms into my office, and so I wanted furniture. Now, y'all know me. If you know me like I think you know I wanted the top of the line furniture. My husband was like, you don't need all of that. So I didn't ask again. I took a copy of all the furniture I wanted online, and I sent it to my daddy and said, if you can just give me one of these pieces for my birthday. Do you know my father bought the entire set, shipped it to me, and my husband was like, what? But again, listen, I wasn't asking for anything outlandish. I wanted to be able to have a credenza so I could file my papers. I wanted a side table so I could work, have my computer on the side and have a table here. Listen, I had it all planned out. And it was all the things I needed to be productive in my business. And it was cute too. So I want you to get that you got to be bold enough to ask. And I think, how dare I ask God that? Why? Why would it be a how dare? When God has put the gift in you, and whatever you're asking for is to bring that gift into fruition. You guys get that? Bible verse here. But without faith, it's impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So when you're asking for something that's in an alignment with who you be, with you being able to be the highest and best version of who God created you to be, why would God say no? Even dare I say, when you ask for a husband, God is always going to give you the desire of your heart. But are bold enough to not just ask, but have the faith that He will give you what you're asking for? Now, here's the second reason: you're not bold enough to do what it takes to get it. Again, go back to the first verse story I read to you in Matthew chapter 20, 29, right? No, that's not it. Sorry, telling you the wrong story. The first story I read to you in John 5 through 9. Again, the man was laying there for 38 years, y'all. 38 years. He had been laying in the same place with the same need and hadn't done anything different. And he made an excuse when God said, you've been laying here, Jesus said, you've been laying here for 38 years. And he said, well, the people keep walking by and not putting me in the water. Why is it their responsibility to put him in the water? Why is it anybody else's responsibility to take action? It's not. It's yours. I need you to get this. God is not going to make it easy. If it was easy, do you know I'd already have my Oprah-like status? I'd have my beautiful $1 billion house in Montecito, wherever she lives, right? I'd be Oprah's neighbor. Hey, girl, you need some sugar? But I don't. You know why? Because I got to work for that. Just like Oprah had to work for it. Just like Tyler Perry had to work for it. Just like if you go after anybody that's wealthy, listen, I always say the Bible is a book of wealthy people. You don't believe me? Go read all the stories in the Bible. Everybody we're talking about: Abraham wealthy, Joshua wealthy. I can go on and on down the line. Moses wealthy. Had to live in the wilderness for a while. Everybody that was obedient to who God created and crafted them to do was wealthy. But they had to be willing to do what it took to get there. Joseph, who rose up to second in command, but all the things he had to go through before he got to that. So you want it, but you don't want to do the work for it. It's like, and the reason I chose this picture, it's like going to the gym. Let me tell y'all something. If I could hire somebody to go to the gym for me where I would never have to work out, I would do it. I'd be sitting over to the side. Yes, I'm drinking coffee because I'm tired. I'd be sitting over to the side, drinking my little drink, my water, probably if I was in the gym, not coffee. I could be drinking coffee in the gym. And saying, girl, you need to do a couple more sit-ups. I want my stomach to be flat. I wish I could do that, but it doesn't work like that. And for many of you, you want to have $1 billion business, but will you do what it takes to get to that $1 billion business? Will you hire the coaches? Will you go through the trainings? Will you do the work? Not gonna happen because faith without works is dead. Come on, somebody. So here's your Bible verse for this one. I think I read it already, didn't I? Yep. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Come boldly. But if you're going to come boldly, you better be ready to take action. hmm And again, I say to you, number three, really, most people don't know what you want. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to tell you that the number of women that I meet, and this was me. So let me just out myself. I remember when I first started dating my husband, I was 37 when I got married. So when I started dating my husband, I had been traveling around the country speaking. At the time, I was working with teenage girls, and I had a youth program that I was setting up in churches. So I was traveling, either I was speaking at a conference or I was going to meet a church to start another chapter of my youth program. I was loving every minute of it. And when my husband asked me when we were dating how many kids I wanted, I said three, like I always did on autopilot, 2.5. And he said, but do you really want to have kids? And I thought, wait a minute. You know what? I don't know. See, no one had ever really asked me, did I really want to have kids? And when he asked me that, I want you to get this. I really want you guys to get this. When he asked me that for the first time in my life, I got to have a choice. See, God gives each of us free will. He wants you to choose. He's not going to choose for you. He's not going to do the work for you. He's not. So many times you guys are waiting on God, and I'm going to tell you, when you're waiting on God, God is usually waiting on you. And so when my husband asked me that, I said, you know what? I actually don't think I want kids. Now, let me tell you, by the time I was 30, I had already received Mother's Day cards because I had been working with teenage girls by then, almost 20 years. I had received Mother's Day cards. Been to graduations. I'd seen my girls graduate from college. I felt like I had a mothering experience. And then now I have two phenomenal bonus children, and I have four grandchildren. Hello, I'm a Gigi. I'm not a grandma. Their mother is grandma. I'm not me. I'm not. Right? But I said to my husband, if I change my mind, would you be willing to adopt? And I asked him that just in case. But I knew in that moment I didn't want to have children. And I had to stop letting the world tell me what I should do or be and follow the desire of my heart. And for many of you, you don't sit with your own desire. See, I believe God puts that desire in your heart. So the question is, and my challenge really to you is to get clear. So let me tell you the three things that clarity will help you do. Okay. I'm gonna wrap up. I promise you that I start getting passionate, y'all. Three things that clarity will help you do. You ready? Because this is where people get stuck, y'all. Some of you aren't bold enough to ask. Some of you are willing to do the work, but some of you aren't even clear to even do the work or to even ask. Actually, you need to do all three. Okay. So let me find where I am on my notes. Number one, when you're clear provides clarity. Now, the reason I have a map there is I remember a man trying to hire me a couple years ago. Well, this is probably more like 15, 20 years ago. And he told my team that he wanted me to help him get to happy. And my salesperson at the time said, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I said, okay, well, why don't you get him on the phone and let's call him together. So my salesperson and I get on the phone with him, and I started asking him to explain to me what happy means to him, and he couldn't describe it. So I said to him, you not being able to describe it is like you telling me to meet you for lunch and you don't even know the name of the restaurant. You don't know the address. You just tell me to meet you, but you give me no insight, no direction. So how do you have guidance to go after something when you're not clear about where you're going? Hello, somebody. So some of you need to sit and get clear with what it is you want and how it is. And what I mean by that is every little detail of it. See, when I know I want to go to LA, I'm clear. I'm getting on the airplane. I want a nonstop flight. I'm not trying to have a layover. Clear, 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 clear. hmm So listen, this helps you have clarity in your message. This helps you have clarity in who you are a good fit for. This helps you get clarity of what your purpose is. This helps you get clarity in how you want to move and live and have your being in your business. When you're working with a team, this helps you be clear when you give your team direction and focus. Because ultimately, and you probably have heard this Bible verse before, write the vision and make it plain on tablets. Now, if I go on to read the next verse after that, it says that he that read it may run. In other words, may go and obtain it. This is why vision boards got so big a couple years ago. This is why when you are working on a project, when you're working with a team, you got to give people direction. Without direction, how do you know where you're going? And without clarity, how do you even give yourself the direction to go anywhere? Number two, it engages the listener. So listen, if you're not clear when you're talking to God, he ain't engaged. He like, all right, well, I'm gonna let you get clear about what you want, and then I'm gonna come on back. That's why I believe Jesus said to the man in the verse that I read at the beginning, what do you want me to do for you? God already knew. See, when God asks questions, he doesn't need to ask a question. He knows the answer already. He wants to know if you're gonna be willing and bold enough to say it and understand what you want. Now, in addition to that, when you are a business owner and you are clear about what you want to talk about, what you want and what you do and how you do it, it engages that person to listen. So many of you come here and listen to me, dare I say, on Mondays, or even those of you that watch the replay. Listen, this is where your story is powerful. This is where stories really hold power. The thing that's interesting is that Jesus was a storyteller. Have you guys not realized that? All the parables in the Bible that Jesus told, and see, the stories were ways that Jesus was engaging the listener. Come on, somebody. So when you don't know what you want, what stories are you telling? How are you connecting to the person that is going to listen to you when you don't know what you want? Dare I say, how you gonna find the person? How's the person gonna find you that's gonna marry you if you don't know what you want? Hello. I'm gonna leave that right there. Number three, it helps avoid misinterruptions or misinterpretations and interruptions, I should say. So here's what happens. Many and misinterpretation means you're missing it. And if you're not clear, how's the person coming to you going to be clear? Listen, I say this all the time. A confused mind does not buy. Say it one more time. A confused mind does not buy. So when you're not clear, how's the person that's coming to you going to be clear? You know, I was reading an article and I wrote it down and it's interesting. I read this article maybe about a month ago. In 1996, Pepsi ran a promotion. Okay. And in the promotion, it had this like, they were joking about that you could win a military aircraft. Well, somebody took it seriously and did all the things that the promotion said and spent all this money. And then when he tried to win the aircraft, the Pepsi was like, oh, there's no aircraft. Do you know that that person sued Pepsi for $33 million? Misinterpretation. So you've got to be clear. You've got to be clear. Listen, here's our Bible verse here. Where there is no vision, the people perish. They perish because they don't know where they're going. They perish because they're not clear. Listen, this is why many of you are walking around in the dark. So again, if Jesus came today and asked you, do you know what you want? What would you tell Jesus right now? If he asked you, what do you want me to do? What would your answer be? Mhm. Where in your life are you selling for less than what you want because you're not clear? And I need you to understand this, successful, high performing woman, that you get to a place where you've been is done, complete, and over, and there's more for you to do. And you hear me say this all the time. Those of you that come here week after week, and I cannot help it, but I got to say it again, which means you staying there is you settling. And one of my favorite quotes is deliberate mediocrity is a sin. So you're deliberately being mediocre because you are willing to be bold enough to ask God for what you really, really want. Here's our Bible verse here. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. I believe when you have this desire rumbling in you, God put that seed in you. God put that seed there. If you put the seed there, it's meant to happen. I'm talking about only the good things. I'm not talking about the bad stuff you might be desiring to do. Like if you're trying to go after somebody else's man, yeah, God, that ain't God. But if you have this rumble inside you to make this big change in this world, it's because you're meant to do it. You have the desire to shift atmospheres, even in business. It could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be with kids, it could be with families, no matter what it is. It could be health related, whatever it is. That desire is because you are meant to do it. The question is, what do you want? What is it what's that desire that's stirring inside of you? My challenge to you here in this episode as we conclude, do you know your power? Because listen, that dissipates your power too. When you're not willing to say what you want, when you're not willing to go after it, when you're not willing to make a big, bold move because it's scary. And nothing God does is ever going to be easy or simple because He's God. If God is going to do the impossible, it's going to take impossible for you to do it, impossible from what you can see. I've seen how God has shifted things. Listen, there's been times that from we have an opportunity to work with Mr. Steve Harvey to working on the Martin Show back in the 90s to I can keep going on and on. Every opportunity I've ever seen God do. To even dare I say, working at First AME Church and sitting in a room when governors came, when President Clinton, he was president then, came to church, and I was, yes, in the room. All of that was God. I've seen God do things I could have never, ever fathomed. And yet He's not done with me either. I'm having to stretch and push myself to take action on a new level. And so I'm challenging you to join me in the journey. Where are you settling? Where are you not bold enough to ask God for it? I need you to have the bold audacity to go and get it. We'll talk more about bold audacity starting next week. All right. So with that, that's our conversation. My challenge to you is to figure out where you are doing less than that desire that's rumbling inside of you. Where are you settling when God has so much more for you to do? All right. So with that, that's it for this week. I'll see y'all next week. Comment below. Tell me insight. Tell me how you are sitting in good enough. Tell me where you're going to push yourself past yesterday's success and how you're going to start to go after what you want. Why? Because you deserve it. I need you to give yourself permission to go and get it. All right. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.